This week on Crime and Conspiracy, we cover the assassination of John F. Kennedy, a topic of controversy for over 5 decades. Was there actually a conspiracy? No shooting of a president has been more investigated or analyzed than the assassination of John F. Kennedy. JFK was shot twice in an open-top convertible during a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. During the Warren Commission's quest to uncover what happened that day, it was discovered that 4 agents who guarded the president testified that JFK ordered the 2 men riding on the rear of his car to get off and enter the follow-up car just behind. The shooting of JFK marked the first time that the assassination of an American president was caught on film. Governor John B. Connally Jr., who was in the car with JFK, was also hit in the shooting, but survived. Officially, there were 3 bullets fired by the gunman. The shooting occurred from the 6th floor window at the southeast corner of the Texas School Book Depository, a building along the motorcade route. From the initial reports, the shooter appeared to be an expert. Some witnesses around the building saw the shooter. Keep watching till the end to find out who assassinated the President of the USA. Returning to JFK, he served as president during the height of the Cold War. The Bay of Pigs fiasco, the failure of 1,400 Cuban exiles trained by the CIA to invade their own country, began at the start of his presidency. But nobody knew in the winter of 1963, the presidency of John F. Kennedy would be tragically cut short. Perhaps these mishandled events played a hand in the assassination. Stick around to the end as we'll dive deep in the crime, conspiracy cases, and finish off with an analytical climax. A dark day in American history, President John F. Kennedy's assassination stunned the world. The images of a grieving nation were forever etched in the minds of those who lived it. On the 21st of November 1963, President John F. Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline departed from Air Force One for a 2-day, 5-city tour of Texas. He was to announce his candidacy for the 1964 presidential elections. The president gave a speech to the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, sharing a light-hearted moment about his travels. The Kennedys arrived in Dallas later that morning, spending time greeting supporters and then joining Texas Governor John Connally and his wife in an open-air limousine. The motorcade moved through Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas through the narrow streets when Nellie Connally, the First Lady of Texas, turned around to the president and commented, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you," which President Kennedy acknowledged by saying, "No, you certainly can't." Those were the last words ever publicly spoken by John F. Kennedy. The presidential motorcade rode through downtown Dallas, passing by crowds of 150,000 people. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson and his wife Lady Bird Johnson rode in a separate car. The route had a lot of curves, which were slowing down the motorcade. At 12:30 p.m., the motorcade passed the grassy knoll to the north of Elm Street and moved towards the Texas School Book Depository. However, the day takes a tragic turn at about 12:30 p.m. President Kennedy is shot in the neck and head. A bullet hit President Kennedy's neck and hit Governor Connally's shoulder and wrist. A second shot then hit President Kennedy in the head, covering the limousine's rear interior with fragments of skull, blood, and brain. The shots come from a 6th-floor window of the Texas School Book Depository building, triggering chaos and panic. The news spreads rapidly, captured in the frantic voices of reporters and witnesses. People scream, and the radio broadcasts convey the urgency and confusion of the moment. The impact was so severe that blood drops and fragments even landed on the Secret Service car that was following behind. The president is rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he is pronounced dead about 30 minutes after the shooting. He was 46 years old. John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today in Dallas, succumbing to a gunshot wound in the brain. The air is thick with grief as the nation grapples with the sudden loss of its leader. The official announcement is made, and the reality sets in: the President of the United States is dead. The country and the world were left shocked. President Kennedy's body was taken from Parkland Hospital to Love Field and loaded onto Air Force One at 2:38 p.m. Sheltered on board the plane in case of further assassination attempts, Lyndon B. Johnson took the oath of office with Jacqueline Kennedy by his side, still wearing her blood-spattered clothes. The oath was administered by U.S. District Court Judge Sarah Hughes less than an hour earlier. A person was arrested by the police following reports from witnesses who heard and saw shots coming from different directions. Several accounts mentioned the southeast corner window on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. Only 2 employees from the building were missing. One had walked outside and wasn't allowed back into the building by the police at the time of the shooting, and another, Lee Harvey Oswald, had only been working there for a month. He had been seen and described by witnesses who saw him in the 6th floor window. A description was sent out by the police. As Oswald moved down the floors, he was encountered by Dallas police officer Marion L. Baker, who had his gun drawn. He was allowed to pass, however, because Oswald's supervisor identified him as an employee. Oswald had slipped out of the book depository after the shooting, walked several blocks, caught a city bus, hailed a taxi, and took it straight to his boarding house. There he picked up a pistol and a coat and began to walk aimlessly. Oswald had already left the scene on a bus to his boarding house by 12:40 p.m. But the police did discover a rifle underneath some boxes and its shells by the window on the 6th floor, as witnesses had described. The police identified it as a 7.65 Mauser, but later the FBI announced that the police were mistaken, and the rifle was an Italian Carcano M91 38 bolt-action rifle. The second-hand Italian-made Carcano rifle had been purchased by Oswald earlier in the year under the alias Heidel. The Carcano was a notoriously inaccurate weapon, and for many, it's hard to believe that with such a weapon, Oswald, despite his former military training, could hit a moving target like the president twice with such precision at a range of approximately 250 feet. Shortly afterward, a Dallas policeman by the name of J.D. Tippit was patrolling his usual area and saw a man who fitted the Oswald description on the corner of 10th Street and Patton Avenue. After a brief exchange of words, Oswald shot Tippit 4 times with a .38 revolver, killing him in front of witnesses. Oswald ran to the nearby commercial street of Jefferson Boulevard, and a man named Johnny Calvin Brewer noticed his suspicious behavior and followed Oswald for several blocks to the Texas Theater. Oswald ducked there without buying a ticket. Oswald was arrested on the stage of the Texas Theater, 6 blocks away from the scene of the crime. At 1:50 p.m. when Oswald was arrested, he was carrying a forged identity card bearing the name Alec Heidel, the alias he used to buy the rifle. However, Texas law imposed no control over the purchase of weapons, and there was no reason to buy it under an assumed name. So why did Oswald buy the rifle and a handgun by mail order under his assumed name? Curiously, Army intelligence was known to have a file on Alec Heidel, the contents of which were destroyed before it could be acquired by investigators. On Sunday morning, the 24th of November, after being held for 2 nights, Oswald was being transferred from city jail to the county jail. The event was being broadcast live on TV for millions of Americans to see. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a man shot a pistol point blank at Oswald, who died 2 hours later at Parkland Memorial Hospital. The man who fired the pistol was Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner. He said that he killed Oswald to spare Mrs. Kennedy the discomfort of coming back to trial. The state funeral for President Kennedy was held on the 25th of November 1963, with representatives from more than 100 countries and millions of viewers watching it on television. On the 29th of November 1963, just a week after JFK's death, Johnson signed an executive order that created the commission, headed by the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court Earl Warren, to investigate the death of the president. 10 months later, its report confirmed that Oswald fired 3 shots, one that entered Kennedy's neck and exited through his throat before hitting Connally. One that hit Kennedy in the back of the head, the fatal shot, and one that missed the president, ricocheted off a piece of sidewalk, and injured James Tagg. The report also confirmed that there is no evidence that Oswald or Jack Ruby were part of a domestic conspiracy or that a foreign government was behind the assassination. The report did not determine why Oswald shot JFK, as Time magazine reported in 1964. The explanation of Oswald's motive for killing President Kennedy was buried with him. Many disagreed with these findings and argued instead that there had been a second shooter on the grassy knoll in Dealey Plaza, where the motorcade had been approaching. There were witnesses who thought they had heard shots coming from the direction of a rim road beyond the knoll. The report, however, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby had acted alone. Although the findings of the Warren Commission continue to be controversial till this day. The Kennedy assassination has been described as the mother of all conspiracies. For decades, polls have consistently found that a majority of Americans believe there was a conspiracy. Some 1,000 to 2,000 books, mostly pro-conspiracy, have been written about the killing. Across different theories, Oswald's role varies from co-conspirator to entirely innocent. Common culprits include the FBI, the CIA, the US military, the Mafia, the military-industrial complex, Vice President Johnson, Castro, the KGB, or some combination thereof. Bugliosi estimated that a total of 42 groups, 82 assassins, and 214 people had been accused in various assassination theories. One of the most developed conspiracy theories was that the next appointed president, Johnson, killed Kennedy to clear his own path to the presidency. Evidence for this theory was supposedly provided by a statement by convicted Watergate conspirator and former CIA agent E. Howard Hunt, who claimed that Johnson had ordered CIA agents to kill Kennedy. Conspiracy theorists often argue that there were multiple shooters, a triangulation of crossfire, and that the fatal shot was fired from the grassy knoll and struck Kennedy in the front of the head. Individuals present in Dealey Plaza have been the subject of much speculation. Conspiracy theorists argue that the autopsy and official investigations were flawed or, at worst, complicit, and that witnesses to the Kennedy assassination met mysterious and suspicious deaths. Conspiracy theories have been espoused by notable figures such as L. Fletcher Prouty, Chief of Special Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Kennedy, who believed that elements of the US military and intelligence communities had conspired to assassinate the president. Governor Connally also rejected the single-bullet theory, and President Johnson reportedly expressed doubt regarding the Warren Commission's conclusions prior to his death. According to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his father believed that the Warren report was a shoddy piece of craftsmanship, and that John F. Kennedy had been killed by a conspiracy, possibly involving Cuban exiles and the CIA. Communist rulers like Castro and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev believed that Kennedy had been killed by right-wing Americans. Former CIA Director R. James Woolsey has argued that Oswald killed Kennedy as part of a Soviet conspiracy. The idea that witnesses to the Kennedy assassination met mysterious or suspicious deaths because they knew things that conspirators did not want to be revealed has been referred to by author Vincent Bugliosi as one of the very most popular and durable myths. Allegations of mysterious or suspicious deaths of witnesses connected with the Kennedy assassination originated with journalist Penn Jones Jr. On the 3rd anniversary of the assassination, Rampads published an editorial by Jones, along with a handful of articles that he had written earlier for his newspaper, the Midlothian Mirror. Jones reported that there were 6 men who had met in Jack Ruby's apartment the night after Ruby shot Oswald. Of the 6 men, Jones noted that 3 of them had since died: reporter Jim Coath, reporter Bill Hunter, and Jack Ruby's first attorney, Tom Howard. Jones described these 3 deaths as mysterious. In a second article in the same issue, Jones reported on the deaths of 7 other individuals who died within 3 years of the assassination: Earlene Roberts, Nancy Jane Mooney, Hank Killam, William Whaley, Edward B. Navids, Dorothy Kilgallen, and Lee Bowers. Jones also described these deaths as mysterious. Jones' article in Ramparts was picked up by Reuters and various other news outlets. Time stated the Ramparts-Jones non-history is riddled with factual errors and perverse conclusions, and offered examples to support its assessment. While numerous conspiracy theories suggest that John F. Kennedy's assassination involved foul play, there is no solid evidence to support such claims. Investigations into his death, including the Warren Commission's report, did not uncover convincing proof of a conspiracy. Despite various figures like the mafia or rogue elements within the government, no concrete evidence has been presented to substantiate these theories. Many people still believe that Kennedy's assassination was the result of a lone gunman, considering the circumstances surrounding the event. Kennedy also faced complex geopolitical challenges during his presidency, including the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War. The lack of substantial evidence and the complexity of the historical context surrounding Kennedy's assassination emphasize the importance of relying on available evidence and identifying the Warren report as true, aka Oswald as the only shooter who killed JFK that day. Later in 2023, new doubt was cast on the Warren Commission's conclusions with the publication of The Final Witness: A Kennedy Secret Service Agent Breaks His Silence After 60 Years, a book by Paul Landis, one of the Secret Service agents assigned to protect the First Lady on that fateful day. Landis, who had been riding on the bumper of the car that was following the presidential limousine, was traumatized by the event and left the Secret Service only months after Kennedy's death. In 2014, having spent most of his life trying to forget the assassination, he read a book about it and came to believe that he held pieces of key information that had never come to light because he had kept them a secret. The Warren Commission's conclusions were partly based on the discovery of the magic bullet on the stretcher that had borne Connolly in Parkland Memorial Hospital. 6 decades later, Landis claimed that after the First Lady left the limousine at the hospital, he found the bullet resting on the top of the back of the seat of the car and, seeking to prevent it from falling into the hands of a scavenger, put it in his pocket, brought it into the hospital, and, without telling anyone, put it on the president's stretcher, irrationally thinking that would be the best place for investigators to find it. How the bullet had been transferred to Connolly's stretcher is uncertain. His account, the centerpiece of The Final Witness, was dismissed by skeptics who focused on Landis's failure to report these actions at the time. But for those who found it credible, the revelation suggested that the bullet in question had struck Kennedy in the back and then become dislodged, rather than penetrating his neck and hitting Connolly. If true, some argued, this interpretation indicated that Connolly would have to have been hit by another bullet, once again raising the possibility of a second shooter. This case was never closed. There are hundreds of conspiracy theories, but none have proper evidence or are widely believed. The Warren Commission report had no detailed insights, and they closed the case. But was it really Oswald who killed JFK? Was he the only shooter involved with JFK's death? Why was Oswald killed by Jack Ruby? These questions keep lingering around the audience. Till date, the assassination of John F. Kennedy remains a true mystery. Did you know that while this case remains open, JFK also had a relationship with Marilyn Monroe, which may or may not have gotten her killed? Watch our episode on the conspiracy behind Marilyn Monroe's death to find out how her relationship with JFK may have resorted to pills following the mafia's pursuit. Do you have any conspiracy of your own related to JFK's assassination? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this video, don't forget to like the video and hit that subscribe button. Thank you.